This is one of the most important pieces of paper in American history, and you've probably never heard of it. During the Civil War, it was found lying in the grass by some Union soldiers. It was just an ordinary envelope sealed with 3 cigars. But what was written inside changed everything. You see, up until this point in the war, the Confederacy had been winning. The Union had just suffered a major defeat at the Battle of Fredericksburg, and morale was at an all-time low. But this little piece of paper, this letter found in the pocket of a dead Confederate soldier, turned everything around. You see, the letter was written by Confederate President Jefferson Davis, and it outlined a plan to invade Pennsylvania and capture the city of Gettysburg. It was a plan so audacious that it shocked the entire nation, and it all started with a single piece of paper. To learn more about this incredible story, stay tuned for more information. It is the second year of the Civil War. America is torn apart, brother against brother. In the North, President Abraham Lincoln struggles to keep the Union alive. In the South, the legendary General Robert E. Lee marches north with an army smaller in size, but unstoppable in spirit. Lee is a master of bold strategy, and in September 1862, he dares to invade Maryland. His chance to strike a crushing blow on Union soil, gain recognition from Europe, and perhaps force Lincoln to surrender. But behind his confidence lies a dangerous secret. To guide his invasion, Lee writes out a detailed plan, a document that would come to be known as Special Order 191. It maps every move, where his divisions will march, where they will camp, and how they will reunite for battle. In short, it is nothing less than his playbook. And now fate steps in. Lee's orders are copied and handed to his generals, but one copy, just one, is misplaced. That single document somehow finds itself wrapped around 3 cigars and left lying in the tall grass near Frederick, Maryland. 2 Union soldiers, Thomas Kenneally and Charles Hart, are scouting the fields. They spot the package and think it's nothing more than free tobacco, but when they open it, their hands begin to tremble. Inside is Lee's entire battle plan, written in the hand of his own generals. In that instant, they know this is no ordinary paper. It is the Confederacy's greatest secret, and by pure chance, it has just fallen into Union hands. The document is rushed to Union Commander, General George McClellan. He is known for his caution, some would say, far too cautious. But when he reads this paper, he can't believe his luck. He reportedly exclaimed, "Here is a paper with which, if I cannot whip Bobby Lee, I will be willing to go home." For the first time, McClellan holds what every general dreams of, complete knowledge of his enemy's movements. Within hours, the Union Army begins to march, moving to intercept Lee's scattered forces. And just days later, the 2 great armies collide at a quiet stream in Maryland, a place called Antietam Creek. September 17, 1862, the Battle of Antietam begins. It becomes the bloodiest single day in American history. More than 22,000 soldiers are killed, wounded, or missing in just 24 hours. The fields of Maryland run red with blood, but because of the intelligence from that lost order, the Union is ready. They meet Lee head-on, and his daring invasion is stopped. Beaten and exhausted, Lee is forced to retreat back into Virginia, and for the first time, the Confederacy's unstoppable momentum is broken. And here's the twist that makes this story legendary. Lincoln had been waiting for a victory, a big one, so that he could issue something he'd been holding onto for months, the Emancipation Proclamation. Without the win at Antietam, he might not have had the political strength to announce it. But after Lee's retreat, Lincoln seized the moment. He declared freedom for enslaved people in Confederate states. This transformed the Civil War. It was no longer just about preserving the Union. It became a moral fight against slavery, and it reshaped America's destiny. So think about it. 1 lost envelope, 3 cigars, a forgotten copy of battle orders lying in the grass. If those Union soldiers hadn't picked it up, Lee might have crushed the Union Army in Maryland. The Confederacy might have been recognized by Britain and France. America, as we know it today, could look very different. But instead, history turned. Not with a cannon, not with a charge, but with a piece of paper and a twist of fate. Hey everyone, welcome to this channel. We bring you stories of the past that will make you laugh, cry, gasp, think, and cheer. And best of all, they're all true. 1862 is a turning point in the US Civil War. After a series of victories, Confederate troops led by General Robert E. Lee were marching north through Maryland. They aimed to force a major battle, hoping it would be so devastating that the North would finally agree to end the conflict and let the South keep its newly won independence. But Lee wasn't banking on running into a Union spy ring. Or maybe he did, but he definitely didn't expect them to be carrying around a cigar. Back then, if you wanted to send a message to a general, you wrote him a letter. No emails, no classified briefcases, just letters passed between couriers and carried by foot soldiers. Sometimes these missives were so important they needed extra protection. They were rolled up, sealed and tucked inside hollowed-out books or, you guessed it, wrapped around cigars. It was safe, discreet, and no one expected it to wind up abandoned in a field. Except that's exactly what happened. As Lee's men moved north, one of his lieutenants, Colonel Charles Marshall, prepared orders for the march. This wasn't just any mission. It was a full-scale invasion, something the Confederacy had never done before. This time, they weren't defending their homeland. They were taking the fight directly to the north. So Marshall took special care with his report, writing out each page twice. One copy stayed with him. The other was sent off to be delivered to Major General John Hood, but somehow that copy never made it. It got lost somewhere between the headquarters and the front lines. Meanwhile, two Union spies named Thomas Keneally and Charles Hart were scouting Confederate positions near Frederick, Maryland. They were looking for anything that could help their commander, General George B. McClellan, and wouldn't you know it, they found Lee's secret orders lying right there in the tall grass. It's unclear exactly how they stumbled upon the documents, but we do know what they thought when they saw them. Charles Hart later recalled, "We picked it up and looked at one another for a moment in silence. It seemed to both of us like a dream. Then I said, well, I guess we have got them now." How exactly did two spies, who had probably spent years in the wilderness learning how to spot a hidden deer, become so bad at their jobs that they missed a cigar-shaped package sitting in a field? Maybe they were getting cocky, or maybe they had simply gotten used to seeing carelessly discarded papers that had nothing of value in them. Whatever the case, they were in for a surprise. The thing was, neither man knew what to do with their discovery. They had no way to contact their commander, and there was no guarantee that he would believe them even if they did. Eventually, they decided to take the orders to General Alfred Pleasonton, who was nearby with the Union cavalry. Even he didn't quite believe the pair. He assumed Lee would never make such a careless mistake. But once they convinced him, things started moving quickly. The orders were taken straight to McClellan, who was staying at a farmhouse near the town of Frederick. He immediately began acting on the information. By the next morning, he had dispatched troops to intercept Lee's army and prevent them from uniting. When Lee realized what had happened, it was too late. His secret plans were already being used against him. He might have been able to change course and catch the Union troops off guard, but it was probably just as likely that his men would have spotted the ruse and fallen into an ambush. Either way, he had no choice but to press forward and hope for the best. On September 17, 1862, the two armies clashed at a quiet stream in Maryland, a place called Antietam Creek. What followed is known as the Battle of Antietam or the Battle of Sharpsburg, depending on which side you ask. It was the single bloodiest day in American history, with more than 22,000 soldiers killed, wounded or missing in just 24 hours. In the end, Lee was forced to retreat back to Virginia. Meanwhile, the Union held on to their ground. Because of the intelligence from that lost order, McClellan was ready for him. It was one of the North's biggest wins of the war, but it nearly never happened. Lee almost certainly didn't intend for his orders to get loose. Even if he had, it's unlikely he would have anticipated the chain of events that followed. But sometimes in war, just like in life, things don't go according to plan. In the weeks after the battle, rumors spread throughout the South about how the Confederacy's secret plans had fallen into Union hands. Some people believed it was true, but most dismissed it as a fairy tale. But one man knew the truth. Just a few days after the battle, Confederate officials recovered the rest of Marshall's report and realized what had happened. They tracked down the colonel and brought him to trial for losing such vital information. But he insisted that he'd only made a copy for Hood, not for distribution. And anyway, it wasn't his fault the paper got lost. Unfortunately for Marshall, no one was buying it. The court found him guilty and sentenced him to be hanged. It was the only execution during the Civil War for losing important documents. But that didn't mean he went down without a fight. He appealed his sentence, claiming that as an officer he was immune from capital punishment unless convicted of a crime punishable by death, and in the end, he won. The sentence was overturned, but his reputation was ruined. Charles Marshall was never promoted again, and he died believing he had been goated. The real culprit, according to many historians, was Major General Hood himself. He failed to deliver his copy of the orders to the other generals and instead kept them with him, which is why he was so surprised when Lee accused him of leaking the plans to the Union. But blame ultimately doesn't matter. The damage was done. And as for those Union spies, Thomas Keneally and Charles Hart, they were both given honorable discharges and small pensions, though they struggled to find steady work in civilian life. Hart eventually became an expressman and Keneally worked as a clerk, but their names were cleared in 1883, when an official investigation found that they had actually saved the Union. In the long run, the effects of that lost order were immeasurable. It gave the Union the upper hand in the Battle of Antietam, one of the deadliest battles in American history, and it helped pave the way for the Emancipation Proclamation, which changed the moral course of the entire conflict. Without that document lying in a field, who knows how history might have turned out. As for the cigars, well, they were never recovered. But here's one last historical hot tip. Want to learn more about the Civil War? Check out our episode on the Battle of Gettysburg, one of the most important turning points in American history.